Okay. All right. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jen Goddard. I'm a board certified doctor of natural health. And if you're seeing this, it's probably on my YouTube channel or in our Facebook group. So I always like to share things that I learn about that would be handy for other people too. And my friend Lindy Ost of Movement Matters, she's doing this great workshop this week. And when she was telling me about it, I was like, oh, I know I have this problem all the time, so I'm sure other people do too. So let's get the word out there so that in case there's others that struggle with it, they have an opportunity to attend as well. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about that. But before we get into the workshop, Lindy, just tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. As you said, my name's Lindy, and I have been a physical therapist, am a physical therapist, and have been practicing for over 40 years. But my true love is the Feldenkrais method, which is a somatic practice that helps people to learn how to move easier in their bodies and not have to suffer some of the pains that are typical of aging or just living a life.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I have this series coming up,
Yeah.
and this is on how to work with yourself so that you have less neck pain.
Nice.
And some of the typical or traditional things that people think about when they have neck pain is that their muscles are tight and they need to stretch them. And this workshop will sort of look at that as not being the most important thing when you
Okay.
have neck pain. So the connection between the head and the spine is actually quite small. It's sort of like two joints are the size of a penny. And so the muscles and ligaments actually keep the head on the spine.
Okay.
And generally, there's some kind of issue that the balance isn't quite right. So the movement lessons help for people to feel within themselves how they can make that movement smoother and easier. So
Nice.
people with neck pain, headaches, eye strain, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
can find an easier way to hold their head on their spine. And it's also related to how the eyes and the spine connect. And so we'll do a combination of work with the eyes and the neck. So
Nice.
that's the basics of it. Yeah.
That's probably really helpful to reduce like the amount of ibuprofen people are probably taking, right? And prevent
Yep.
those issues. And especially if you're sitting
Yeah.
like sitting at the computer all day, sometimes like I find myself going like this, like,
Right. So one thing that I'll teach, but like even people now can think about is just closing your eyes. We eliminate the visual input and that takes stress off of the nervous system.
mm,
And so that reduces tension. So it's like these little tips that people can learn that they can do and practice that
mm,
doesn't necessarily take a lot of time or effort or money, but if they try it and use it, it can make a big difference.
yeah. And I've heard people mention the Feldenkrais method just throughout my career in different ways, but I've never experienced it myself. Can you expand on that a little bit more? On the difference between like maybe that and typical physical therapy or chiropractic? Like how does that all differ?
Sure. So the Feldenkrais method itself was founded by Moshe Feldenkrais, who had knee injuries. And at the time, they didn't have the kind of surgery or diagnostic interventions that could help figure out exactly what was going on. So he considered surgery, but the surgeon said that his chance of success would be 50%. He's like, what are my other options? And they said, go to bed.
Cool.
So he went to bed, but he didn't just sit in bed, right? He was a physicist, he was a martial artist. So he reprogrammed his nervous system so that he could do what people who didn't have knee problems could do
Wow.
physically in their bodies. So he based it also on development. So when you think of a young child just learning to hold their head up, learning to roll, learning to sit, stand, and walk, there's a a process that happens, and it's not, it's not a direct linear process. There's doing it, there's falling, there's forgetting. And so he incorporated that into the movement lessons. So our brains can register how we're moving under the force of gravity without the effort, because when you think of a little kid learning, they don't really, hopefully they don't strain too much to be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because they won't succeed.
Yeah.
They'll just fall or it won't happen. So it's like in the processes occurs when that process gets easier, when there's less effort, when the breathing isn't interfered with. And so the movement explorations are about make it simple, go slowly, um, make it pleasant. So it's very different than what we might think of in developing fitness or reducing pain. There's still a message that it's work and you
Mm.
have to work hard at it. So
Mhm.
that's the message we're trying to soften a bit.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
breathing is huge. I see that all the time with my clients too. It's a big factor in so many different things. People don't realize their cardiovascular health, like so much is attached to your diaphragm's the largest pump for your lymphatic system. So when you're not breathing right, it translates into all these other things. And yet we take it so much for granted, like drinking water. It's like one of those things that we think, oh, well, we'll just do. Well, I'm breathing, so I must be doing it right. And it's like, no, just because you're breathing doesn't mean you're doing it the best
Right.
way that your body can use, right?
Right. Well, the thing about breathing is that it's um, balanced with our postural muscles.
Mhm.
So if our postural muscles are overworking, there's going to be an impact on the breathing. Whenever we have fear or we get triggered, our breathing can stop. If we're trying too hard, our breathing can stop. And that
Mm.
breathing, the patterns of our breathing are developed throughout our whole life.
Mhm.
It's the one movement place that really brings consciousness and unconsciousness together.
Mm.
And so, any work that anyone can do with their breathing will make a difference to their health no matter what.
Mhm. Do you
Yeah.
recommend any type of breathwork practices, or is that something that you kind of cover in your workshops or in other parts of what you do?
Yep. I've taught series on breathing in the past, and there's almost always some component of breathing during every series.
Yeah.
We think more about how to vary breathing because,
Mhm.
in some ways, we want breathing to change. So, if we're doing something really physically demanding, we want our breathing to get deeper. We want it to be able to get quicker. If we're quieting and if we're going to sleep, we want it to get shallower. We want it to get slower. We
Mhm.
want it to be responsive to the activities that we're doing. And it's when the breathing can't vary that generally we run into problems. So the movement lessons help to create variation and sort of wake up the movement of the ribs and the difference between the movement of the abdomen versus the use of the muscles between the ribs.
Mm.
One other thing I can say is that people think of their abdomen and their lower ribs when they think about breathing, but not so much about the front and the back. And people are really surprised when they learn that their ribs are all the way up here.
Mhm.
So it's sort of like it's to even feel movement up there is can be very new for many, many people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just we the more focus and attention that we can put in that space, like you said, even the back, like we don't think about, when I visualize it sometimes when I feel like I'm struggling, it's like it expanding both ways, right? And not just, okay, well, I'm pushing out my chest kind of thing, right? But having it expand even through the back.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with the workshop that's coming up, who would be a good candidate for the workshop?
Sure. So anyone who has had neck pain or headaches and they haven't found satisfying solutions for themselves, this would be there would be tips that people can learn that they can practice at home.
Mhm.
If, let's say, people are in severe chronic pain, they are invited to come, but I would not expect them to do all of the movements.
Mhm.
I would hope that they would come to learn how to listen to different parts of themselves, shift their attention.
Mhm.
So the idea is really you want to be able to find comfort and ease.
Mhm.
And so any person who's interested in um, being able to have their head move freely, people who have difficulty turning around and looking behind them when they're driving,
Mhm.
or getting a stiff neck. So anyone like that would be appropriate for this series.
Okay.
And but again, I would just caution that with most programs, it's about accomplishment, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of people, their work is how to pull that back, how to
Mhm.
sit back a little bit and just be really patient and just notice things that they might not have the opportunity to notice in their busy everyday lives.
Mhm. So do people need anything to participate in something like this?
So there will be the lessons will be a combination of sitting in chairs or lying down. So a comfortable place that they can lie down, either on the floor with a yoga mat or blanket, or on a futon or bed, are all appropriate.
Mhm.
And of course, video and audio.
Mhm.
But that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when is this going to happen? When is your workshop?
Sure. It starts Monday. So there's two options for taking the classes, and it's virtually, it's online. So it's Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays Eastern time.
Okay.
And I send out a link and go to my website, movementmattersme.com, and I will send out an email letting giving people the link and basic instructions before we begin.
Okay. Great. Yeah, and we
Yeah.
can put the link for them to register too.
Okay.
So does this repeat weekly or is it once and that's it? Like how does
Oh,
it?
that's a great question. Yeah. So it is 5 classes, so 5 weeks. Next week's week 1, and then it will go through the middle of July. And it's an hour approximately per class. I give a little bit of an introduction, and then we do the movement lesson, and then we come back and just hear how it was for people so that they have an opportunity to share what their experience was,
Okay.
which I think is also an important part of the learning, because they can hear other people who might have struggled or other people who discovered something that was really interesting to them.
Mhm.
So it's nice to be able to share that afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah.
So depending on when you're watching this, just in case it's after it airs, so the Monday that we're referring to is Monday, June 17th, and the Wednesday is Wednesday, June 19th. Now, let's say they're watching this and it's Thursday and they're interested. Is it too late to sign up if they missed the first week or?
Good question. It is not. And actually, a number of people who have already registered won't be able to attend all of them, but there are recordings, and I provide a link to the recordings about a day or two after, and so they can do it. And usually the lessons aren't necessarily in order, that you can do them whichever one feels right to do, and you can skip a lesson and still show up and do fine in a series. So
Okay.
that's not an issue at all.
Nice. All right. Well, I will put a link to the website so that they can check it out. And I'm sure there's more information about it on there. I might even do it myself and just watch the recordings
That's fine. Please do.
because it's something that, like I said, it happens often, especially sitting at the computer all the time. And I
Yeah.
find myself like slumping more and more this way, and then straighten up.
Actually, I was just cleaning out some shelves in my office, and I came across this note that one of the previous participants wrote about. And she says, "It happened in a moment with my eyes closed. Deep, deep, deeper I went. A flash came and asked me to move my eyes. What a surprise to know they're friends with my neck. And I suspect my shoulders too."
Oh, that's gorgeous. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
a nice surprise to find.
Well, in the medical community, the world that we live in today, like they isolate out all these parts, right? You go to a specialist for your finger, and then you go to a specialist for your toe, right? And you start to think of your body as all these separate parts.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you forget how interrelated everything is, and one thing leads to the next and the next and the next.
Yes. Yes.
So that was
And I
great.
think that, I'll add one more point. And I think the potency of doing lessons, these kind of movement lessons, is that we're not going to the problem and trying to solve a problem. We're connecting it to the whole. We're whole people. All of us act in our lives, but we don't always recognize, or we don't always experience those different parts. So it's like, how do we work with ourselves in that wholeness in a
Mm,
more satisfying way?
yeah, that's a really good point. Great.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for hopping on here and sharing this. We're going to get this out to people so that hopefully they don't miss the first one. But like she said, if you do miss the first one, it's not going to be too late. And we'll get you in, and she'll get you the recordings, and you'll be able to pick it up wherever you start and
That's
catch
great,
up.
Jen. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great. Looking
Right.
forward to having people join.
Yeah, sounds good.